Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Shawn. It's great to have you here today. I'm so excited for this show today. I just watched this docuseries. It's 3-part called The Enemy Within, and it's incredibly powerful. It's about Patrick Byrne. You might have heard of him. He was the CEO of Overstock.com, but he has an incredible story, his interactions with the government, and it's captivating, folks. It's completely captivating. It's something every American needs to watch. Watch the trailer here. You'll see what I'm talking about.
My name is Patrick Byrne, domestic extremist threat number one. Or not. Perhaps I'm just somebody who's willing to say the emperor has no clothes. You can decide for yourself.
Patrick Byrne.
They're following everything that you've been working on.
Yes, sir. Understood.
You may know of me as the CEO of this $2 billion e-commerce company, but really, I have this other life.
You have an unusual relationship with the United States government?
Sir, why are you bringing this up?
The FBI needed me to set up a bribe.
We can't have agents running around creating crimes.
It would violate too many rules for us to do it, but if you're willing to go do it, we'll look the other way.
Hello, my name is Maria Putina.
Then I would make it happen. Instead of being happy, they say,
Just let it play, all right?
"What?"
Let it play?
Now, I know this may look like the Deep Throat scene from All the President's Men, but where do you think that stuff comes from? These things happen.
What you think you know.
I was encouraged to have a relationship,
What you think you are.
and it's heated up.
I'm going to meet the Trumps.
As I was starting to realize the feds were using Maria to smudge up the Republican Party, and they were using me to use Maria. And this truth is going to be so explosive.
Erase every moment from your memory.
If you do this long enough, you begin to feel like an enemy of your own country.
They're going to arrest this Russian grad student so they could say, no, there is an actual Russian at the center of our Russian collusion drama. A civilization all begins with the rule of law. And once that gets corrupted, it's like my worst fears have just been realized. I don't know, maybe I'm just being sensitive.
So as you can see, this story is captivating, and that trailer just shows you a little bit about it. I mean, you will not be able to stop watching. I watched all 3 parts all together, and it's an incredible story. And even if you don't believe it, it's incredibly well produced, and it's a phenomenal story. And it's pretty easy for me to believe when you see what's been going on with the government. So if you go to patrickbyrnemovie.com, you can find that. And so I just encourage you to listen with an open mind, listen to the information, and then you use your critical thinking skills, and you decide what you believe is the truth. So without further ado, please welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast, Mr. Patrick Byrne. Patrick Byrne, welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast. It's such an honor to have you here today. Thank you for joining me.
Miriam, what an honor it is to be on with you and to be on with the moms. The moms, I've come to realize in the last 4 years what cowards men are compared to moms. And moms saved America, and among the most courageous fighters in America the last 4 years have been the moms who just said, we're not going to put up with this. I loved it.
Well, your mom is a pretty incredible lady herself, and I'm so honored to have you on to talk about your story that's been made so beautifully produced by the Thayers with Spirit Pictures into a 3-part docuseries called The Enemy Within. And I just can't begin to tell you this docuseries. I watch a lot, I read a lot, and this captured me from the very beginning. It was so incredibly well done. And my goal in speaking with you is just to tell a little bit, some parts of the story, to get folks to understand a little bit so that they can get more of the details when they review this and watch it. But I thought I'll just watch it in 3 parts. It's a 3-part series. I literally could not put my phone down. It was so gripping. And I was telling a friend I was going to church Sunday night, and I literally was late because I was sitting in the car, gripped and really pretty much paralyzed by this. It was so well done. And so I'm really excited to talk to you about that today. I think most people know you, Patrick, of course, as the CEO of Overstock.com, this brilliant genius tech wizard who started that company, was massively successful. But I think there's some things that really are important. You talk about this story that is so crazy. I personally didn't think it was, but I wanted to just talk about a little bit about your background, because I think it creates some credibility, authenticity, not that you need it. But for me, I felt like I pretty instantly was like, this dude is legit. Like you went to Dartmouth, Cambridge, Stanford. You have pretty much a photographic memory, which I think is incredibly cool. And you had a stuttering issue, and your mom, your amazing mom, was the one that helped you with that.
Yes, she is. In fact, I'll tell you, Mr. Buffett became a great mentor and teacher to me. And he told me, and this, I knew him since I was 13, before he was this famous man. And he told me when I was about 26, 27, he said, Patrick, most people go through life trying to win the lottery once. You won it twice the day you were born. You got your father, who was like winning the Connecticut state lottery, and you got your mother, who was the Irish sweepstakes. And my mother, I hate to get all choked up, but my mom really was extraordinary. And yes, I had a very bad stuttering issue. And she used to carry a book of poetry and teach me poetry, because when I recited poetry, well, I stuttered and I lisped and I said wabbit and I said totanut, and I was really, no one could understand me but she. But she would teach me poems. Then for people's birthday, instead of giving a physical present, I would recite a poem that I had learned for them. And that was, and it was, so I learned a whole bunch of poetry, and I could recite without stuttering. And so I was the youngest of three sons, and my mom and I was more like my mom's. My two older brothers were my dad's. That's kind of how it just emotionally worked out. Oh, well, she's really.
And one thing I wanted to bring up, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I thought that her involvement in your life was so powerful too. But before we go to that, I wanted to touch base with you. I found this incredibly fascinating. I wanted to ask you a question about this. So you studied abroad in China your junior year at Dartmouth, and your relationship with the government is incredibly fascinating, because I just was putting myself in your shoes, and maybe there's some things that I'm missing, but I think it's so incredibly wild. Like, what are the chances that you're going to study in China and that a man is going to come up to you and give you a letter to give to the U.S. government? And maybe because of your dad and Warren Buffett and that relationship, maybe you had access to the U.S. government. But as I was captivated by that part of the movie, and I was thinking, how does that happen? First of all, that he would know to come to you. How would he know that you could deliver it to U.S. government? And then you successfully did. And it was like that created this birth of this relationship with Uncle Sam.
Well, first of all, you should know I get nauseous even talking about this, because even my best friends for decades never knew anything about this side of my life. I was a bit entrepreneur, and I've never been married or had children. And what they didn't know was this other side of my life, even very, very close friends of mine. And I thought it was going to die with me. And you're never supposed to talk about this stuff. I should say up front, I'm not CIA. The one group I never worked for was CIA or anything to do with spying. But I got used. There were opportunities for peace that I often got sort of tapped on the shoulder, and they understood early on that would be something I would gravitate to, I suppose. It did happen in China. I was a student in 83, 84 there, and I had a French girlfriend, and days I was speaking Chinese and nights I was speaking French, and I was walking through a public place, and we were speaking French, and this little man from Laos came up, and they spoke perfect French. Laos was a former French colony next to Vietnam. And he came bounding up and introducing himself, because he heard us speaking French. And so we got to know each other a bit. He had joined us for dinner. And I went back about 5 times, and had dinner with him. And as we became friends, and after 3 or 4 times, he asked me, he was a general who'd run a coup to take over his country, then been deposed by the CIA, frankly. And he was living in exile in China, but he had 600 troops loyal to him fighting a guerrilla war in Laos. And the Chinese were hosting him in a guest house. His name was General Kong Lei. And he said, after 3 or 4 dinners, he said, I'd like to get a letter to the United States government. Would you be willing to do that, to take it to your embassy? And I didn't even say yes that dinner. That seemed and I said, no. Well, I said, let me think about it. And I went back a week later and said, yes, if you've got a letter, it seemed harmless. It didn't seem. And so he wrote a letter, and I took it. I didn't even know who to go to in the embassy, but I knew that there was a position called military attaché. I didn't know quite what they did, but I figured, well, that guy would probably know whoever was supposed to go to. So I just went to the embassy, and I asked to speak to, there was a Marine Guard. I asked to get and speak to a consular officer, and I sat with him. I told him that story, and I said, can I meet is there a military attaché? And I think they just brought out like an assistant to somebody, and they took the letter. I never knew what was in the letter. But then 5 years later, so the next 5 years were quite rough for me. I had cancer a few times. I was very sick and hospitalized for most of 3 years. And then as I got out, Stanford was wonderful to me. And I started a graduate degree at Stanford, and I did lots of, I was in and out of the hospital at Stanford University, and Stanford was wonderful. And I was doing, among other things, development economics. I got reached out to by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He met my father, and he asked my father, are you the father of the young man who was in China 5 years ago and delivered a letter to the United States government? And my father said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But he took a business card and got it to me, and I gave the chairman of the Joint Chiefs a call, and he said he was just stepping down, and he said, come see me in Minnesota. So I went up to where he was retiring in Minnesota, and he said, President Reagan has given me as my last duty to serve my country. He asked me to restore peaceful relations with Vietnam. And Patrick, and he actually had me spend a day with him, sort of getting to know me and ask me questions and all these kinds of things, and testing my French. He spoke French, and I knew a lot. I was a bit of a Vietnam War buff, so I knew a lot about the Vietnam War, and I read a lot about it. And he asked me, he said, look, we were supposed to be reestablishing diplomatic relations. I've had 3 or 4 meetings with my counterpart, the foreign minister. And that man has said, if you Americans are serious, please do something humanitarian for us to show us. So, Patrick, we have no diplomatic relations, but I'll give you a letter and I will fax them a letter. And I'd like you to go to Vietnam and just spend a couple weeks and come back and write me a report on how, if there's a budget of, say, $300,000, how could that money be spent to do the most good for the most people in Vietnam? And so, so I went over to Vietnam. I said, yes, sir. I was studying development economics. Had grown up. You see why it actually makes some sense.
It does.
I knew something about Vietnam. I spoke Chinese. It all kind of worked. So I went and spent a couple of weeks. The government was fantastic to me. I had one of the most incredible experiences of my life. I came back and wrote was basically a term paper and turned it into them. And I understand that basically everything I proposed they did. And they were small things. They were things like there was either the Swiss or the Swedes had built a plant, a little factory to make artificial limbs, of which there were a lot of lost limbs at Vietnam in 1988. But they had run out of, you pour, I think it was polyurethane into the machines, and they would extrude artificial limb, arms and legs. And they needed, and so I realized, gee, if all we get is, for I think it was like $120 a barrel of polyethylene, it can create, 8 limbs or 28 limbs or something, and 28 lives are fixed. And I did it all on this very dollar per life basis. I just made up all the economics. I mean, what analyzed that and gave this term paper. And they went and did it. They did these things, and thus began this relationship where the government knew that on occasion, and I take no, and by the way, it took another few years, but then peaceful relations were established. I take no big credit. I pushed the ox cart of peace forward an inch. Is
Yes,
all that.
you said you're the conversation before the conversation.
Yeah. At one point in about 2005, somebody on the National Security Council was asking me to do something in the Middle East, actually. Most of my assignments had to do with peace, something to do with a peace mission. And I said to him, but they often had to do with sort of going into rough areas and meeting enemies of our country. And I said, finally, maybe 2005 or 6, I said to somebody on the National Security Council giving me a task, why do you ask me to do this? Don't you have folks that do this stuff? And he said, Patrick, in this world, sometimes before certain kinds of people talk, other kinds of people need to talk. You're that other kind of person. So that's the only explanation I ever got. I was deniable.
Honestly, when you look at your acumen, I mean, you are primed and educated and really made by God for these kinds of tasks. And so I'm really thrilled that the government, we can say a lot of bad things and expose a lot of corruption, but this is one brilliant move I believe they made, is they realized this U.S. citizen who is, genius, brilliant, nearly perfect photographic memory, a good heart, and really wants peace. And you, with your personality and your acumen, you're able to go in and have these original conversations to just kind of like the door opener, right? Like you open the door and create enough peace to allow our government people to come in. And I just think it's so incredible, because as I'm watching the movie, you must have said, I know this sounds crazy. Well, first of all, it doesn't sound crazy, because after you've seen all the corruption exposed, whether it's Trump or Flynn, I mean, that's been documented, proven, and nothing's happened, to these folks who have initiated and succeeded seemingly with the corruption. This doesn't seem crazy, but this is documented, and that's why I wanted to talk about this first with you, Patrick, because in the docu-series The Enemy Within, you show pictures of you with Reagan. I mean, this did happen. I mean, that you did do these peaceful diplomatic relation excursions, and so I just wanted to start with that, because I think the propaganda lying arm of the radical left, that machine of mainstream media, just loves to say disinformation, misinformation. I know they called you a conspiracy theorist, and we'll get into that the next time about the exposure that you exposed the corruption on Wall Street, and one, by the way. But I think it's so important to talk about that. And then I want to just finish briefly up talking about your mom. So when you were doing these peaceful missions, if you will, and being the door opener, the conversation before the conversation, you were sick. You said you had cancer 3 times, 90 surgeries, and
115. I've had 115 surgeries. It's been a 40-year end of life ride. 40 years. They took the last tumor out last year. They've stopped my heart 400 times, and I've had 115 surgeries now.
Wow.
Samuel Johnson said, when you tell a man he's to be hung in a fortnight, it tends to focus his mind tremendously. So I never really thought in terms of starting a family or getting married or settling down. It doesn't seem to but it's been a 40-year ride of end of life. There was actually a point in the middle of some of what went on in the movie. I was stage 4 of 2 unrelated things at the same time. One of them had a 23% chance of survival, and one of them was similar. And I don't know.
Is that why you weren't afraid? Is that how you could go into Vietnam and go into these countries you said that were really enemies of our government? You could go in there so boldly, or did you do it courageously? You were afraid, but you did it anyway.
I hate to say it because it's kind of tempting fate to talk this. I'm never afraid. I'm fine. I mean, I don't want to get tortured to death, but you could, if God whispered in my ear, you're going to die tomorrow morning at 3 a.m. It wouldn't change a thing. I've died 500 times. So I'm a tough guy to scare. But it has to do with,
Is it the cancer or is it your personality and how you're wired?
I think most people would say my cancer, but there was someone in my life once who used to tell me, Patrick, you haven't changed one bit. You were like this exactly before cancer. There's nothing about you that changed. This is exactly who you've been since I met you. So I don't know. Speaking of which, I should mention that. So my mom made, and I tell one of the stories in the movie, which I'd never ever. My mom made probably close to a dozen times in my medical sojourn. There was some moment where she had to make a decision that it was a binary decision, and she made the right one that saved my life. There's at least 6 times I could name off the top of my head. And there was one that was so bad that we never even speak of it. Even in my family, we never spoke of it. But every couple of years, my mom and I, one of them will say to the other, you remember that day? And I was like, yeah, I remember the day. We never even say any more of it. And as I was sitting there doing the interviews for this movie, I realized the situation that it required telling that story. So I told that story, and that's in the movie.
Well, I know we're running out of time and we're going to have you back, Patrick, but I want to say that as a mom myself, I mean, sometimes we can look at people like you and say, I'm not as smart, I'm not as well read, or I haven't been to Dartmouth or Stanford or Cambridge, by the way. But you know what I'm saying? Like you think like I'm not as good as this person because I haven't done all these things. But I mean, the power of a mom over their son. I mean, she literally saved your life, and now God is using you to expose evil and to say the emperor has no clothes and to boldly say that without fear. I mean, he made you to do this, Patrick. This is your mission, and your mom saved your life so that you could fulfill your mission. And I think that's pretty awesome. And I'm looking forward to having you back. It's an incredible story. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. What an honor to be on with you. I look forward to being back.
Thank you, Patrick. Isn't Patrick Byrne amazing? I mean, this story is so captivating because the chances of this happening, this is what makes me believe in the Lord, because the chances of this happening, somebody with his knowledge and education and just happen to be in China. I mean, just all the things line up. It is just such an incredible story. And this is just the introduction. We're going to have him back on to get into the heart of his story and his mission and what happened. And I'm incredibly excited to have him back. So go get the movie, patrickbyrnemovie.com, and watch it today. And if you don't have time to watch all of it, if you can pace yourself, I was not able to do that, but if you can, it's broken down into 3 parts, so you can watch it at 3 different times. But patrickbyrnemovie.com, go get it today. And then email me at moms@momsonamission.net. I'd love to hear what you think about it, but we'll have him back on to share the rest of his story. I did want to encourage you all to be ready for viruses and bacteria, whatever happens this fall and winter. I know I personally have battled a few things the last few weeks. And the beauty is that the wellness company, twc.health/mission, you can grab that link. You can go there. Mission saves you 10%. They have a bazillion different products. But what I want to talk to you today is something that I am passionate about, that I have in my cabinet. And that is, they have a medical emergency kit. They have one for kids. Isn't it so cute? The turquoise color. I absolutely love it. The kids emergency kit. And then they have, this is for adults, the medical emergency kit. It is for 18 and up. So if you have a 16-year-old or 15-year-old, they want you to grab this, the one for kids. And then this one is for adults. We have a few of these in my house for all of us to have. I don't know about you, but in 2020, I couldn't get certain medications that, the pharmacies or the powers that be didn't want us to have, so that we would be forced to take other measures. And so after that happened, I thought, you know what, never going to happen again. I'm going to stick one of these kits in my cabinet for me and one for my whole family. So if you go to twc.health/mission today, you can grab one of these. They also have one that's called the Contagion Emergency Kit, and it prepares you for bird flu and monkeypox and all those things. and you have medications. It's just amazing all the things they have in these kits. And they also have a guidebook. So if you're like, oh, I don't know when to use what, they have a guidebook and it will, help you know when to use an antifungal or an antibiotic or things like that. So twc.health/mission. The mission saves you 10% off everything you order every single time. So thank you all so much for listening. Please share this episode. I think this story is incredibly important that we share this, that we know that this happened and we can speak about it. And most importantly, pray. Thanks for joining me today and have a great day. In light of recent bank volatility and skyrocketing inflation, diversification is a must. That's why I use my good friend Andrew Sorcini at Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Beverly Hills Precious Metals makes it so easy to diversify. I personally ordered some silver and it arrived on my doorstep just a few days later. They make it so easy. And if you're not ready to do that and you just want to ask a few questions, they're there for you too. I personally got some silver and also am rolling over some of my IRA. You can actually roll over your IRA and have it be backed by silver and gold. So if you don't have any extra money to invest in silver and gold, rolling over a 401k or an IRA, or even part of it, if you just want to try it at first, just for a little bit, you can do that as well. So go to bh-pm.com today and ask all your questions. You can connect with somebody. And like I said, you can just get some information at first if you want and pray about it, and then get back with them to roll over part of your IRA or all of it, or order some gold and silver. That's bh-pm.com. and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. Hey, everybody. Did you know that recent research from the CDC says that millions of Americans develop parasitic infections and symptoms often go unnoticed or are misdiagnosed? Parasites are actually the cause of many health problems such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, fatigue, and unexplained digestive issues. We all need a common sense strategy to improve our health. Moms on a Mission encourages you to reach out to our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean. Dr. Dean's Full Moon Protocol provides all natural detoxification and fights inflammation. And the supplements are made with 100% organic ingredients and are proven to kill parasites safely and effectively. I know after I took Full Moon Protocol, I had more energy. To order your Full Moon Protocol today, go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. According to leading sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle getting a good night's rest. That's why Moms on a Mission loves MyPillow. MyPillow makes amazing pillows, sheets, mattress toppers, robes, towels, literally almost everything you need for a good night's sleep. They also make dog beds for your dogs. So by going to mypillow.com, typing in the code MISSION, you not only receive a high quality product, but you're supporting Moms on a Mission and this podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you agree with it, you believe in it, and you want to support Moms on a Mission, then go to mypillow.com today and order some high quality products and just type in the code MISSION at checkout and you can save up to 66% off. That's mypillow.com, code MISSION.
Since 2014, Organic Body Essentials has offered clean, simple, certified organic skincare. Our organic face-to-feet and federally compliant hemp and pet products are manufactured under USDA and FDA guidelines. Our products are inspired by God using plants He created. In Ezekiel 47:12, it says, "The fruit is for food and the leaves for healing." We believe in the power of God to heal, so we pray over our products and for our customers. Our therapy in a bottle approach has been widely received, and our customers' testimonials continue to inspire us. You can find us at organicbodyessentials.com and obe.organicbodyessentials.com. Please feel welcome to reach out with questions. Use coupon code MISSION at checkout for a discount. Thank you for your support by using MISSION at checkout to benefit Moms on a Mission and their quest to reestablish traditional values in our education system and empowerment for a healthy lifestyle.